Hey you guys, it's Peter and welcome to my channel, Peter Watches TV, where I watch all the TV shows and then I come over here and I react to them. And today I want to talk about a newly released documentary that came out on Netflix last week, and that is The Perfect Neighbor. Now I have to tell you, I was really excited about watching this documentary. It had been on my list for a while. I saw that it came out, I think initially, like in January, at some festivals and things like that, and I had heard a lot about this documentary and how fantastic it was. And so I was really excited to watch it. I actually started watching it, so I live in Indianapolis, so the new releases on Netflix release at 3 a.m. here. I think I started watching it at like 3:30 in the morning the night that it was released. I think it was released early last Friday. And so I started watching it, and I believe it's about an hour and a half, and I think maybe an hour and 45 minutes long. I got about halfway through it, and the whole documentary is very emotional, but at about the halfway mark, it was just so emotional, and it was so late at that point that I was like, okay, I'm going to stop this, and I'm going to finish it tomorrow. So I actually finished it in 2 parts, which I usually don't do with true crime documentaries. So anyway, so I was very excited about watching this. It's interesting because this weekend, since the documentary's come out, I have probably gotten more direct messages from people asking me for my reaction on this documentary than any other documentary that I have ever covered over on this channel before. So I think that's very telling about what people think about this documentary already. I will say that, like I told my friends this weekend, everybody that I know has already watched this documentary, and I said, you know, like, this is one of the most important documentaries. I was telling everybody to watch it. I said, this is a really important documentary. I think that everybody should watch this documentary. So let's go into me watching this documentary. I want to give you the synopsis that is written up about it really quickly. Oh, hold on a second. I had it all pulled up and now it's out of here. Okay. So the synopsis for, oh shoot, The Perfect Neighbor, okay, I had all this synopsis and all this pulled up. A seemingly minor neighborhood dispute in Florida escalates into deadly violence. Police body cam footage and investigative interviews expose the consequences of Florida's stand your ground laws. Now, before I went into this documentary, I hadn't read the synopsis for it, so I didn't know anything about this documentary, like I said. All I knew was that it was about this neighborhood and that something that happened ended in a violent death. That's all I knew about this. I literally knew nothing more about this documentary when I started it. And actually, when I go in and I watch true crime documentaries, any kind of documentaries, I prefer to go into them not really knowing a lot about the case, or, you know, if they're cases I've never heard of. I don't like to read articles or investigate about it. I like to go into it and just see what the documentary presents and kind of, you know, make my own opinions and perspectives from that. So anyway, so as I started watching this, it comes up like at the beginning of it and says that something about this relies completely on body cam footage. Now, I'm somebody that watches a lot of documentaries, not just true crime documentaries, but I watch a lot of documentaries, and I have for years and years. I mean, ever since I was like in high school. Love documentaries. And my first question was, how are they going to show this entire show through this entire story? How are they going to tell it all through body cam footage? Not only do they do it so eloquently, okay, that they show the entire thing through body cam footage, it's police body cam footage. Not only do they tell the entire story through body cam footage, okay, but it almost at points, the point that I stopped it at, which I will get to in just a second, was so emotional that it almost felt intrusive that the police were there catching it on body cam footage. So as a viewer watching it, it felt very intrusive. It just was genius how they did it. I don't know that I think that the impact of the story would have felt as strongly. I mean, there's one scene when, like, the police come over, it's after the shooting occurs, and the police are there, and one of the mothers comes out, and he says something about, can you make it easier on me? And he's catching her on the body cam footage. She's standing out in the yard, she's smoking a cigarette, and she says, make it easier on you? Make it easier on you? And she's like, get the fuck out of here. And I was like, this is why this is so important that it's being caught this way, that we can see, like, really in time what's really going on. So I didn't really know how they were going to tell it. I had no clue watching it. When you go into it, I think at the beginning of it, if I remember correctly, like I said, I need to be making these reactions like literally the day after, because I had so much to say about it this weekend, but it's been a couple days. But so when it starts, I think it starts talking about, like, they're getting a call to this house I believe it happened in 2023, where there's been a shooting and it's in this neighborhood. And so they show them driving down the street and there's like these people standing on the street and they're like, the kids are like yelling like, here, here, here. They've called 911. And that's how the whole thing starts. And then they don't really show a lot more than that. Then it goes back in time, I think 1.5, 2 years. And it's about this woman named Susan Lorenz, okay? And Susan is this neighbor that lives, so this neighborhood is a lot of like duplexes and rental properties. But it just looks like any other street in middle America. I mean, it looks like the streets that surround my neighborhood. And so it's very racially divided, and you can tell that it's very racially divided. And that's one of the reasons why this documentary is so important. And so Susan is white, and a lot of the neighbors are black. And so she, and this comes up in the documentary later, but the way that they show it, it's so telling for who she is that they don't even really have to say it or ask a lot of questions about it. So her house is across the street. I'm assuming anybody that's watching my review has already watched the documentary. Okay, so she has this yard next to her, and the yard is between her and another property, and it's this huge yard, and so the kids really have nowhere else to play, so they play football in this yard, okay, and they're constantly out there playing football, and she has kind of like this gated patio, and so she's constantly complaining that the kids are out there, and they're blah, 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 whatever, running around, all that kind of stuff. You know, I think it's interesting. I grew up in a neighborhood that we played every day in the summer in the cul-de-sac. I don't remember neighbors ever complaining about it. It's what kids do when you move into a neighborhood with kids. You know, we have a lot of dogs in our neighborhood. I would never, ever call the police on one of my, neighbors. It's, the dogs are running around the backyard and whatever. I mean, like, it's part of being in a neighborhood. It's part of loving your neighbors and all that kind of stuff. This woman never wanted to get along with her neighbors whatsoever. And so she took this huge issue with these kids constantly playing in this yard next to her. So they were loud and they were disrespectful to her and they were throwing things and all this kind of stuff. So the body cam footage shows where she calls the police numerous times, okay? I mean, I think in the show, they show maybe 6 times, but I think that in actuality, I've read articles that since I've watched the documentary, that she actually called, I think it was closer to 10 or 12, 20 times, something like that. The fact that she was never charged with overuse of the, police is bizarre to me. I mean, she called the police so many times, and every time it was always the same complaint, okay? And she was very manipulative in how she would do it, because she would say, like, the kids are doing this, and, I'm kind of old, and, I'm just like, I want a quiet neighborhood, and the kids are being really, she's making noise complaints, is what she was doing. And what she would say is, she'd say, I know that probably one of the moms is going to say that I always overreact and whatever. So she was getting ahead of the story, so that when they would go interview the moms across the street, the moms would say something, and then it was like this huge thing. Okay, so when you first start watching it, they interview this woman named Adjika Owens, okay? And Adjika Owens is the mother of, I think she has 3 kids and that live in the neighborhood directly across the street from Susan. What's interesting about this, okay, if you first start watching it, is when they go to Susan's house for the noise complaint, and Susan comes out the door, and the police take her statement and ask her all these things, okay? Then they ask her, whose kid it was. They go across the street. They talk to Adjika Owens, okay, who ends up being the victim of the shooting by Susan. When they're talking to Adjika Owens, the police ask her for her ID. They ask her where they ask her all these questions that they never asked Susan, okay, which I thought was very, very interesting. I was like, so you ask this mom that's literally just standing out on the street, watching her kids, minding her own business. You're asking her all these pervasive questions, but you didn't ask Susan, you didn't ask her for her ID. Do you live at this house? They didn't even know. She could have been, robbed that house and just been standing there and said, yeah, this is my house. They didn't even ask for her ID or anything. They just took her word on it, okay? Which I think is a really strong sign of the privilege of how this woman got away with so much throughout the years in this neighborhood. So it goes on and it goes on, and there's all these complaints that she makes, and there's a lot of body cam footage of the kids calling her a Karen, and the kids keep on playing over there. One of the neighbors is the owners of the building is yeah, it's not really my property, so I can't tell them not to play it. They show them that in the court footage later. Another one of the like one of the owners is like, the owners never really get involved. It's just Susan. And she threatens that she's going to move out of this neighborhood. I don't know why she ever stayed in this neighborhood. I don't know why she ever moved in this neighborhood, okay? Like, she obviously was so unhappy in this neighborhood. She would sit inside and she would like, because they watched her one night, she would sit inside and she would set off her car alarm on her truck, her pickup truck, and then she would come outside and blame it on the kids. I mean, it was crazy, okay? So it escalates and escalates and escalates. This one night that the kids are playing in the field next to her house. The problem with this is, like, one of the moms said it, and she said, even if we tell the kids not to go over there and play, they're going to continue to go and play. This field was like a perfect, I mean, it could have been like, there could have been a playground there for kids. It was the perfect place for kids to play. They're really, when they showed the neighborhood, I mean, it was very much like zero property line. There wasn't a lot of spaces between the houses, which, I mean, I guess you could say, well, then they could find other neighborhoods to live into, but it was obviously a low-income neighborhood. It's not like these people had a lot of options, okay? And so, most of them had 3 and 4 kids. This was a perfect place for the kids to play. And one of the police officers, I loved it. This female police officer, the one that even most of them wouldn't challenge Susan at all. She said to the police officer, or she said to Susan, because Susan was complaining about it, she said, I'd rather have the kids playing football in a field than out on the streets, like doing drugs and stuff like that. 100%. 100%. If you watch my vlog channel at all, one of the things I talk about is our HOA, our homeowners association. And these people in the neighborhood go crazy, okay? Some of them do. Some of us just laugh about it. About kids from outside of the neighborhood come in here because we have lakes in our neighborhood and they fish in the neighborhood, okay? I've talked a lot about this on my vlog. What they say is it's a liability issue, but they really just don't want kids in here fishing is what it is, okay? And there's like a lot of us that are like, wouldn't you rather have kids fishing in a neighborhood than out there running the streets, getting into trouble, doing dangerous things? You know, so there's a lot of us that are like, just let the kids fish, you know? Oh, it's a liability issue and they're trampling our lawns and stuff like that. And I live in a neighborhood that has like, it's primarily older people. So, you know, like it's very, so when I was seeing this, I was like, oh, I mean, like people will complain about anything, but I love that the police officer said that, okay? So then it escalates and escalates and escalates to where this one little boy has got his tablet over there, okay? And it's not really clear what really happens, but at some point, like, Susan gets his tablet. It's probably like he's playing football, he throws his tablet on the ground. She, like, went out there and she got it. She's throwing roller skates at the kids because they were left their roller skates, like, close, and she almost tripped on the roller skates. She's got this umbrella out there. She changes her story so many times. She's like, well, I thought it was going to rain. And then she's like, well, I didn't wave it at them. I mean, it's, like, so weird. Then she, like, has this kid's tablet. He comes and asks for it, and she, like, won't give it to him. So his mother is Ajika Owens. So Ajika has had enough, okay? And so she goes over there, and I'm telling you right now, my mother would have acted the exact same way. She goes over there, and she says it's like 10 minutes that she's pounding on the door originally. They break it down and they find out that from the time, because she calls the police, okay? Susan calls the police again. The police tell the people that they're sending a squad car over there. In between the time that she hangs up the phone and the 911 call comes through that she has shot Ajika Owens, it is literally like 2 minutes. 2 minutes that she says that this woman like pounded down her door and she was scared for her life, okay? So Ajika Owens comes over there and asks for her son's, knocking on the door, asking for her son's tablet, okay? She says she's so afraid for her life that she has now got this gun that she shoots through the door and shoots Ajika Owens. So when the police show up, you don't know at this time that Ajika is dead. She's shot in the chest. And so they're like doing all this stuff on her. The street's going crazy. Everybody's is going crazy in the streets because they're all like worried about what's happened and all this kind of stuff. They bring Susan out of the house. They put her in the back of a squad car while all this is going down. This was the part that was so emotional to watch. And then so then they call Ajika's ex up to come over for the kids. And then the police are kind of talking to themselves, and you find out that Ajika's passed away, that she didn't make it. Like when they took her away, she didn't make it. And so then the dad is like telling the kids, and the one kid whose tablet it was feels like so guilty. Like if my mom didn't have to go over there for my tablet, this never would have happened. It's so crushing to watch. But then what happens is they go take Susan in. They don't charge her. They don't arrest her. None of that, okay? Which, let's just be completely honest, right? Like, in the climate that we live in, if the tables were turned if the tables were turned and it was Ajika Owens that had happened with, she'd be arrested immediately. Immediately she would be arrested and charged, okay? But Susan, because she's older and she's white, you know, they like take her in, they question her. She gives all these different stories. She's like, they tell her that she's like, that this woman died. And she's like, oh, really? She's like completely unremorseful. Like she is, I mean, it's bizarre to me, okay? So then they let her go home to get stuff from her house. Oh, this was the best part, right? She's leaving the house after she shot this woman and the police are putting her in the back of the car. And she says, can you make sure he closes my door because I've got cats in there? She's more concerned about her cats getting out than she is about the life of Ajika Owens, okay? So then it goes in and it goes into they're asking for justice for Ajika and justice for Ajika because there's no charges that have been pressed. And honestly, at this point, I really felt it was because of a lot of like the national press that got involved, the protests that were happening, that the police felt some kind of responsibility because they really didn't ask a whole lot of different questions than they asked originally. So they get Susan in a room and they ask her and her stories aren't matching up. The one police officer is even like, here, let me give you a pad of paper and like you can write a note to the family. She basically just is like, I mean, it's like 3 sentences, 2 sentences. I'm sorry about what happened to your mom. Something like that. It was, I mean, the lack of remorse was unbelievable. And then they said, we're going to arrest you. And she's like, no, like, I can't go with you. And they're like, we're going to take you across the street. The fact that they even allowed this, okay? I mean, I have previous career working with the Department of Corrections. I have so many friends of mine as a sober person. I've been sober for over 30 years. I'm actively involved in the 12-step program. I have so many friends of mine that are actively in the Department of Corrections, work release, on paper. I mean, I have so many friends of mine that, like, I've seen all this go down. The fact that they let this woman sit there for 10 minutes, okay, while she's like, no, I can't go, no, I can't go. They'd have ripped anybody out of that chair and put the cuffs on her immediately, okay? The fact that they even allowed that and tolerated that for 10 minutes was beyond to me. I'm like, this woman is being treated so completely differently. I was just blown away by it. I could not believe it. So then they show her court trial, and they have all these people testify, and blah, 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 whatever. I think she got 25 years for manslaughter, I think it was, for Ajika Owens. At the end of it, this is kind of a little bit of what bothered me, I will say, is at the end of it, they like cite all these statistics and they put all this kind of stuff. I really wish they would have shown that before they did the court trial, because I think at that point, a lot of people click off these shows, and I think that the information that came out about that, because they start talking about the stand your ground law in Florida, okay? Which is that if somebody, it's like you feel like your life is threatened, that you can like defend yourself. Susan had looked this up, okay? Not just once, but multiple times. She had actually looked it up the day that she had shot Ajika Owens, okay? And so at the end of the documentary is when they put up the information about the stand your ground law. That information needed to be up there before. Now, I know to be cohesive, they wanted to have it all together and then show like the roll the credits, roll the information at the end, okay? But that was such important because it would have like disturbed the body cam footage. But they show trial footage that's not body cam footage. So they should have put that up there before, because I think there's not a lot of people, I think there's a lot of people that don't know about the stand your ground law, okay? And when you look at it in the perspective of the stand your ground law, what it looked like was that Susan had researched this. She was like, I can't move from this neighborhood for whatever reason, okay? Maybe financial, or she just didn't want to. These people are never going to listen to me. The police won't do anything about it. And so I'm going to act like I'm threatened. And this is going to be my law that I'm going to stand on. Because she never once, ever, being questioned by the police, she never once felt like, never did I ever, until you saw her in the courtroom and she was sentenced and she just kind of like rolled her eyes and walked away, did she ever show any remorse, or even, she never acted like she was even worried that she was going to be arrested. Never looked like she was worried that she was going to get arrested. You know, the fact that you can live in the United States and kill somebody and by shooting them through a door and not even worry that you're going to be arrested about it because you're standing behind this law that you've looked, and then it's 2 minutes time from when you called the police to when you shot this person. It was baffling to me. It was absolutely baffling to me that she didn't have any remorse. She didn't like worry about getting arrested. I mean, you can kind of see it go through her head in the room where they're like, we're going to take you across the street. And then they keep on going on with her. They're like, are we going to really have to do it this way? I mean, you need to, finally she stands up and they take her across the road. I'm like, they would never allow this with anybody else. I mean, it was crazy to me. It was crazy to me. The documentary is so sad. Towards the end of it, they show like the memorial for Ajika Owens, and they show like the neighborhood, and that's when the police officer comes and says like, if you could make this easier for me, and she's like, make it easier for me, and this whole neighborhood has been disrupted about it. These kids will forever, you know, like the minister at the memorial says something, the pastor or minister, he says something to the effect of, to the son whose tablet it was, because you can tell he has a lot of grief, and he says something to him about like, this is not, you did not do this, and like, this has nothing to do with you, and like, I can't remember exactly how he says it, but basically like, let's not take this as a reason to go on and ruin our lives. And I think it's like, I think so many of us that have wounds in our life, like, have been able to like take those things that have happened. And I think that message to her son in that moment, like, this is a moment that you can use to make your mother proud of, like, you made it through this to the other side, you know? And I don't know, it's just a sad story. It never had to happen this way. I mean, a life lost, a mother of these children completely lost, and it never had to happen. This never had to happen, you know? And quite honestly, I was blown away that the police, like, the police at times seemed like they did the best that they could with placating Susan and the other people. Like, they would talk to the kids in the neighborhood and be like, yeah, when did you start school and all this kind of stuff. But it's like, at what point, like, do you say, okay, Susan, you've now called like 15 times. You've called us 10 times. Like, they knew her. Like, at one point they show and they're like, yeah, she calls a lot. Like, she's a repeat offender kind of caller and whatever. Like, at what point can you not evaluate that this is heating up? Like, unless they maybe didn't think that she was ever a threat, or that she would ever physically do something to one of these, the kids. I mean, she could have hurt one of, I mean, she didn't know, like, they said to her in the thing, you did not know that there was not a kid standing on the other side of that door. She didn't seem remorseful about that. She didn't seem remorseful that she killed another human being and that she shot this woman through the door. She didn't even know, you know? I don't know. It blew me away. This documentary, I think, is so important. I went into it thinking, how the hell are they going to tell the story through body cam footage? And in all honesty, by the end of it, I thought there was no other way to tell this story. I thought it was fantastically done. I was just blown away. Anyway, let me know what you thought about it in the comment section below. If you haven't watched it, I mean, even though I've told a lot about it, it is still such an important documentary to watch, and I highly recommend it. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. I love you guys, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.